Hey guys, welcome back to the Build for Ukraine Part 8. In this part of the build, we're going to be covering a lot of painting techniques and how I do a little bit of weathering and aging of the parts, similar to some of the other stuff I've done on this build so far. Right now what we're doing is we are painting the exhaust. I've already given it a base coat of gloss black. Now over that gloss black, I'm laying over a color coat of titanium silver, which is one of my favorite colors to use for this kind of thing, as it's not a super bright silver. It actually more looks like an aged metal, as it's a little bit yellowed. I think it's the best way to describe it, so it doesn't look like a stark, bright, brand new part, as that is not what I'm trying to depict here. So what I'm going to do is give it a base color of the titanium silver, and then we'll move on to the next step. Now that our base color is laid down, you can see the entire exhaust is covered in titanium silver. Now what I'm doing is applying some Owlclad pale burnt metal, and that's like a yellowish goldish kind of color, and what that's going to do is provide part of the heat stained effect that I'm using to show the exhaust as a used part, not something that's brand new and shiny. And that yellowing is going to dictate where the heat gathers in the part. We're doing a very light dusting of the pale gold, and that, as you can see, is just giving a yellow tint to certain parts of the exhaust system. Again, you just want to do a light dusting. You don't want to do too much because you're not looking to paint the part. You're just looking to add a slightly different color and shade to it. Here's the finished effect on the first part of our aging and heat treating the exhaust. Okay, now we're going to start the next layer of color, and what we're going to do here is that now we want to add the actual burned metal look to the exhaust. Now to do that, I'm using Owlclad burnt iron, and that is going to apply all the darkened tinge to the metal where the metal is actually heated and burned. And that's going to give us not only our shadowing and give us a more realistic scale look to the item, but it's also going to finish off the burned effect that we want on this exhaust. And we're going to again apply it in the same places we applied the previous color, as all the areas where the exhaust would gather is where the metal is going to get superheated and it'll change the color of the metal. So you'll see it all on the edges of the mufflers, where the bends of the pipes are, and that's really going to serve to give us a really cool look. Exhaust look. With the newer exhaust systems with titanium and other metals, you can add other colors like blue and red. Really a fun effect. Okay, now that we're done with the exhaust system, we're going to start with the other parts of the drivetrain. Here we have the drive shaft. Now what I want to do here is show a similar effect, not exactly the same, as we're going for a more of a very used metallic look, but we don't want to put a heat stained effect on it because it is a drive shaft, it's not an exhaust system. So what we're going to do is apply the Owlclad burnt carbon to the joints of the drive shaft. All the CV joints on the drive shaft are going to be darkened in, as they're going to be filled with grease. Grime is going to collect there. Everything is going to get dirtier there than it will in the rest of the drive shaft. Now that's going to serve to darken in the joints, and you'll be able to see the detailing stand out more and all the cracks and crevices there. And that's really going to serve to make it look quite a bit more realistic and quite a bit more in scale. It's like I like to say, all that shadow adds scale to the part. And here we have our finished drive shaft. I think it looks really good, and it really does, like I like to say, add scale. I know I keep saying that, but I like to say it because I think it works. Now, I decided I'm going to go back and play a little more with the exhaust system. It's like I said, this is a really fun effect, and I really encourage you guys to try it and just play with it. I mean, there's no right or wrong here. You're just going to do it till it looks right, till it looks like something that you feel is correct. Now here I decided I was going to add a little bit of Tamiya transparent blue, because I wanted to do a little more of the heat discoloration on it. I wasn't really going to add the blue at first, but then it just looked like it was missing something. So I decided, hey, why not? Let's just keep playing. And I went and I got some Tamiya clear blue, and just a very light tint of clear blue. You're going to be doing more air than paint, just to give it a tint of blue on the metal. As I said before, this is an old style exhaust. It's not like a titanium exhaust or something newer or modern where you would see a really bright blue. What you want on something that's this old, like this car is from the 30s, it's just a very, very light blue tint to show the discoloration of the metal. And this is just such a fun process that I would just keep going, and sometimes I tend to overdo it. So I gotta watch myself. So as I said, try it, guys. You're gonna enjoy this. This is one of my favorite parts of when I build. And here we have the finished product. Again, this time with a little blue tint added to it, which I actually really kind of like it with a little bit of blue on it. Just very, very light. Nothing too bright, nothing too stark. And I think it adds something to it, gives it a little more realistic appearance. So anyway, I was having so much fun with the blue, I figured, what the heck, let's go at that drive shaft again. And I went at it again. I'm telling you, when you guys play with this effect, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to have so much fun that you're going to want to just keep going. Now I understand why armor modelers and military modelers, why they enjoy weathering so much. So here we go again. I love this stuff. Now comes the time when we start adding our first bits of body color. Now, since this is a build in honor of the Ukrainian people, we're going to be using the traditional Ukrainian colors of blue and yellow, like in their flag. And the blue I chose is Tamiya French blue. It's a beautiful shade of blue, and it will be part of the two-tone paint scheme. These are the wheels here, as the wheels are going to be body colored. Well, the blue part of the body color. So right now I'm just spraying them down with the Tamiya and getting them ready for their big debut. Alright, now we're putting together the wheels and tires. As you can see, I've painted the wheels blue for the body color with a nice clear coat. That's Tamiya blue and Tamiya clear on there. And then I did a little bit of weathering with the Tamiya panel line paint just to darken in the recesses, make it a little more realistic. Then the back of it is painted with Vallejo steel, and again Tamiya panel line paint, just to bring out all the recesses like I've done on other areas of the kit. Now, one thing I want to point out is the tires, although they are an excellent molding, they're really clean and really nicely made, there is a little bit of flash on some of the areas. So what I did was I just sanded down on the tread a little bit, make them look a little bit used and worn. adding a little wear to them just gives it a little more of a realistic appearance and eliminates the little bit of flash that was on there. Now, I also noticed that every tire had one side where there was a little bit of flash on the sidewall. So you might want to look at the tires before you mount them on the rims and mount them with the best looking side facing outward. There is no lettering on these tires, and the tread is the same inner and outer, so they're not directional. So what you might want to do is just take a look at them and put your best foot forward here, which is what I did here, and they actually look pretty good. So now we're just installing the center caps. These are the center caps. It's a beautiful chrome that they have. Normally I would remove the kit chrome, but this is just such a beautiful layer of chrome that they put on here that I decided I'm just going to leave it alone. I mean, are they perfect? No. There's actually one has a small indentation, which looks like a dent in the center cap, which I kind of liked, because it just adds a little bit more realism to it. I think is this the one? I don't know if you guys would be able to make it out. Which one is it? It's a very small dent. Just, I don't know. To me, it just looked kind of cool to leave the dent in there, so I didn't bother doing anything with that. But it's a really nice crystal clear and shiny chrome, and one of the best chromes that I've seen come on a kit. And I like it, so I decided I'm just going to leave it. So what we're going to do is we're going to excuse me there for a second, just getting over a little rough patch, but I'm feeling much better now. Just going to take a little toothpick. We're going to apply a little super glue just to the inner edge of the wheel here, center part of the wheel, and then we're just going to install the hubcap on it. And do that just by applying just a little bit of the crazy glue on the inner part of the wheel here. I want to do this nice and neat so that it doesn't leak out onto the wheel. And then we'll just drop our chrome center cap right into the wheel there. Make sure that it's sitting straight. And there we go. And there we are. Now we'll just give the super glue a chance to set up, and we'll be done with our wheels. There we go. All 4 wheels and tires are done. Alright, now since last we joined, we have installed the engine, transmission into the chassis. Here you can see the drive shaft with all of its detail painting done. Using the same method that I used for the engine block and all other parts of the body. Adding the lights and the darks just to bring out the shadows and highlight the components to really give it a much more realistic appearance. Now, one thing of note, the only attachment point for the engine are these 2 small blocks here are where the engine pegs into. That is basically it. Then you're going to have to keep the engine straight while the glue sets so that it sits straight in the chassis. Otherwise, the transmission will have a tendency to sag downward because there is nothing holding the transmission here. As you can see that it does have a little bit of movement there. So until you attach it to the body, it's pretty much just floating in the air there. So it's very delicate. You have to be very careful when you install the engine into the chassis because you can easily knock it right out. Now, another little fitment issue that I found is that the radiator, in order to attach it properly to its two mounts, it's got the lower hose and upper hose mounting points on the radiator there. Radiator, by the way, was made just by masking off and using Vallejo aluminum on the fins and then painting the rest of it semi-gloss Tamiya black. Now, one thing I want to show you here. Here you see the upper hose and the lower hose. Now the radiator is supposed to... I haven't put it on yet because it's going to cause you to move the engine around a bit. And I don't want to risk knocking the engine off. So until I have the car in the chassis attached to the body and this engine secured a little more carefully in there, I'm not going to put that on, as I am having a little bit of a fitment issue with the radiator. As you can see, in order to hit the hoses, it has to go a little bit lower than its original mount on top of this cross member here. Oh, by the way, another little note. Make sure you put the cross member in the right way. I put this one in upside down. Doesn't really matter if it fits correct both ways. But this one actually has a tab to center your radiator assembly. Not that it's really that important, because you're going to be using the radiator hoses to hold this thing in place anyway. So as you can see, this is where it's supposed to sit. But it's not going to sit there perfectly unless I can do a little bit of a modification to the radiator. So that I'm going to do after the chassis is installed on the lower half of the body, because I need to make sure that all of this has a little more rigidity to it before I start forcing it and trying to get it to do what I want it to do. Alright, now, since we were talking about wheels and tires, I'm going to point out one of the little, another little fit issue with this kit. It does have a few, but nothing that's unsurmountable and nothing is, that is really that difficult to deal with. The rear wheels, this kit does not have rotating wheels. They all have to be glued on. So it's not a kit that you're going to be rolling around anywhere. Which really doesn't matter because as delicate as it is, you don't really want to be playing with it. But you can see here where you're supposed to insert the axle end into the cavity there on the wheel. Now the only issue is I've been playing around with different methods. The axle end is a little bit too large for the cavity in the wheel, so it won't settle down fully on the axle. You can't really get it to stay in there all the way. So I started on this side by filing down a little bit of the axle end. I thought that might be a nice, quick and easy way. Maybe it's just the paint that was causing it to stick. So I took the paint off, and nope, still have no luck in getting it to seat in there fully. And then I decided, well, then the only answer is to enlarge the cavity here. So let me show you how I did that. Here we have the other axle, side of the axle, and the wheel that I haven't done anything to yet. I get my little Keshi rotary tool and this small router bit here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the router bit in the cavity just to enlarge it just a little bit. You don't want to do too much. So let me show you exactly how I got that. definitely cut away at the walls very carefully. And maintaining your circumference of your circle perfectly so that you don't have it turn into an oblong circle. Let's see, we are better, but still not quite there. I know it looks like there's a lot being cut out, but it really isn't. And look at that. Almost perfect. There it is. Now we have a nice snug fit. That's what we're looking for. Now, if you needed the wheels to roll, that would be a very easy modification to make. I didn't bother on this one, but you could drill a small hole here, inside the hub, which is covered over by the hubcap anyway. Put a pin in it, and you could have rolling wheels. It's not something that I was interested in doing on this kit, but if you were looking to make that modification, it wouldn't have been that difficult. Okay, this is still going to need a little bit more work. Go. There we go. That is perfect. Right there, no need to go any further. And there we go. Rear wheels are now able to mount right onto the chassis. Simple little modification to make your life a little bit easier when mounting the wheels onto the model. Okay, now we're back at the paint booth. What we're going to do now is we're going to lay down our base color for our carpeting, as I plan on using embossing powder to simulate the carpet. And in order to do that, you have to lay down a base color so that it'll fill in any of the spaces between the powder particles, so that it gives you one nice, smooth, uniform color. Now, the color I'm using here is the Tamiya Flat Earth, as it gave me a brown that's close enough to the powder that they'll really match well together. And also, it's a brownish color that's going to complement the rest of the interior. And here we have our finished base color. It's going to look good underneath the embossing powder. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, now we're going to start laying down our first bit of body color. The car is going to be painted in the traditional colors of the Ukrainian flag, which are yellow and blue. So now I'm laying down the first coats of yellow to the inset panels on the sides of the body. Okay, now we're going back to laying our second color. This is the front end of the car. Here you have the headlight housings, the front grille, and these are all being painted with the Tamiya French blue. It's a beautiful blue color, and it's going to complement the yellow perfectly. Next up on the bench is the windshield, header, and firewall. Again in Tamiya French blue. Right here we're looking at the convertible boot for the Admiral Cabriolet. Now, just like everything else in this kit, it's a pretty intricate little build. It's made of 4 parts, not just a single molded piece like you find in most convertible boots. And you're going to have quite a few seam areas that you're going to have to fill in and fix so that it has a proper seamless appearance. So what we're going to talk about is, even though it is pretty much a simple construct of the 4 parts, it's got a top, a bottom, and 2 sides. The sides what we're going to talk about here. As you can see, we'll take a good look here. You see that little ridge here? There's one ridge on the rear part of the boot. And on the side piece, here, there are the 2 remaining ridges, which make up all the mounting areas for the side piece. As you can see, the rear ridge slots into here, and these 2 slot into here. Now when you're putting it together, you have to make sure that you slot in the forward part of the ridge underneath there, the upper part there, while at the same time slotting the rear part of the ridge behind it, so that when it all sits in, it's all perfectly flush the way it is here. And apart from the panel lines, which is a whole nother job we're going to get into with sealing and smoothing all of that out, it should give you a nice tight appearance just like that, which has all the correct curves and conforms to the shape of the convertible top boot. So let's clean this part up. Don't have to worry about being super neat, as there's quite a bit more work it's going to be involved in getting this boot together. We just want to get rid of all the nubs. Now that that's gone, what we're going to do is just a trial fit. As you can see here, we're going to ride on that rear ridge. Now you may have to do a little convincing to get it to sit all the way in with the other parts, which have already been glued together. The other side went in pretty smoothly. Looks like this one's going to be a little bit of a tight fit there. There we go. And we have a little bit of a fit issue with this side here. Let's just see where we're having our... We're going all the way this way here. There we go.
Sometimes it takes a little bit of convincing, but once it gets in, which I found that on quite a few parts of this kit, that they seem to have a sweet spot that they want to hit. And once they hit that spot, it just kind of goes together. But it may take you a little bit to get there. Then put a little bit of Tamiya thin cement in there. Don't worry about laying it on thick, because we're going to have to do some filling in order to make all of these panel lines go away. So if we can get the thin cement to melt these seams together and do some of the work for us, that would be even better. Now remember, this is supposed to be a complete canvas cover, or folding canvas roof, but this is supposed to be the boot over that canvas top. So it should look like one solid piece of material when you're done. And here we have our raw assembled part before we do any sort of filling and shaping. Now we're just going to give the glue a little time to cure before we start diving into any of the cleanup work. Now I'm going to leave you with a couple of beauty shots of some of what we got done today. It was a fun process. Hope you guys decide to dive in. Thanks for watching.